Good morning and welcome to One Talk Radio podcast coming to you from the land of Bahrain. And over the past few months, we have had several speakers from servant leaders to entrepreneurs, mindset coaches to lifestyle influencers. And today is my delight to introduce to you our new guest, my sister Lubna, who is an experienced leader who has worked with several international blue chip organizations across the world and currently the managing director of Stories, which she will explain to you in a moment. She's also an author who's writing a book by the title Leading Like a Parent. Welcome to One Talk Radio podcast, my sister Lubna.
Thank you so much, John. Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thank you. It's great to have you, Lubna. And the most important part of this interview is always about knowing the person behind the mic. And if I would ask just a simple question, who is Lubna?
First and foremost, I'd say Lubna is a proud mother. I'm very proud to be a mom of 3 kids, but also an owner of a business. So I always say I'm a mom of 4 because having a business is like having a child. So I'm a proud mother who believes that every mother can change the world, and that everything starts with a mother. So that's in brief who I am.
That's so cool and it's lovable. So, briefly, when you hear about women in leadership, Lubna, you as a mother and a person who's also leading from outside, what comes into your mind?
The first thing that comes to my mind when I hear a mother or a leader is somebody who's strong, who's out to shape the future. Because when you're a mother, you're shaping the future, right? Because you're raising your kids and you're raising them in a way that will influence the future. So that's why I always say that moms change the world, because you're actually raising your kids to have a life of impact, and you can apply that to your business as well.
That's so nice. Thank you for that. And there has been this prejudice about women, to women leadership, especially in a work environment where there's a woman leader and other women are working under her, and or having a colleague who's working and you're all women. Sometimes there's conflict, there are wrangles, and people say that a woman is an enemy to a woman herself. What is your take on this, Lubna?
So look, I get you. I wrote a post on LinkedIn at some point where I did a debate. I have these debates once a week and I call them Lubna debates. And I said, I raised that debate. I said, do you think women uplift each other or don't? And I had a split response, 50-50. And I get that, some people feel that women put other women down. I belong to the other camp. I believe that women uplift each other. And I hope that, I've done that to certain other women. And I think the times that I haven't, it's not because they were a woman. It's because of due to perhaps other conflicts. But I believe that women uplift each other. The majority of my career, I've worked under male CEOs rather than women CEOs. And I didn't notice, I think when you believe in yourself and you live a life of impact and you make impact for the business that you're working on, I don't think that you face prejudice personally. But I've also consulted for a woman CEO, and I must say that this was one of the best experiences I've had, because she was a remarkable woman who's very influential, who also believes in uplifting other women. So I personally haven't faced it too much. What I've faced is maybe, I'd say, jealousies. And to people who are jealous, I'd say, if you have other people who are jealous of you, that's a good sign, right?
Yeah, of
That's
course.
a sign that you're doing something right. So I try to I've faced that at work many times from colleagues, not from a boss. And to people like that, I always say the grass is greener where you water it. It's not greener on the other side. Because so many times we think that, we look at other people who look like they have it all. and we're like, oh, I wish I could be like them. But then
Yeah.
when you get close to people, you realize that everybody has their struggle and everybody's facing something that you know nothing about. Um, so I always say to people, the grass is greener where you water it. So just focus on your own grass and water your own grass, and you'll go places in life.
Definitely, definitely. And I love that statement. It's believing in yourself and having an impactful life. It's not all about, taking some other people down. And Lubna, you have been on TED Talk. And I wanted to know, as a woman, as you were growing up, when did you start to see yourself on TED Talk show? And how does this influence your leadership today, in your own words?
So I remember, I mean, I never, as a child, I never really had a vision of being on a TEDx talk or, an influencer.
Hmm.
But I've always believed that I'm going to live a life of impact. I've always believed that I'm going to live a life of purpose. I've always believed that I want to make a change in this world. And that's because I grew up during the Lebanese war. And when you face a situation like that and you grow up every day thinking today is my last day, today I'm gonna die because the bomb is just right beside me,
Hmm.
you realize that you know there's no coincidence in life. God put you here for a reason. You survived for a reason. And I always believe that on our deathbed, the only thing that matters is that story that we leave behind, because we don't take away with us our money or our jobs or our projects that we fight so hard for. It's all going to be gone, right? The only thing that you take away with you on your deathbed is stories. And that's why I called my company Stories. And because I've always believed in that, I've always wanted to make a life of impact, and I've done that. But I've always been behind the scenes. I've never been a very visible person until this year, and that's when I was watching a video for Gary Vaynerchuk, who many people know and like. And in that video, he said, somebody asked him, "Why are you doing all these videos?" Because he puts out like tons of videos every day. And in
Hmm.
one of his videos, he said, "I want to do this because I want to leave record for my kids. I want my kids to see these videos one day and remember what their dad was about." And I realized that for the last 8 to 10 years since I've had children, I've been completely behind the scenes. I haven't worked on my personal brand. I don't have a single video out. I stopped speaking. And I said, no, I'm going to change that because I want to leave record behind. I want my kids to read my book one day. I want my kids to see me on video. I want my daughter to hear this podcast so that she can remember the principles that I lived by. And that's when the switch happened. So I wanted to start with something impactful, and I started with a TEDx talk. And then since then, I started focusing all my influence on LinkedIn because my target audience are CEOs. And so I only started in Feb, and I've been growing since, and hopefully will continue growing from there. But I wanted to do this TEDx talk recently. It's not something that has always been on my bucket list, and I made it happen. And has it influenced my leadership? I would say I think it put me in the limelight again because I have been behind the scenes for a long period of time. And it made me more determined to influence. It made me more determined to use my voice to change the world.
That's pretty cool, Lubna, and I really love the way you put it. And coming back to being an author and also writing a book and trying to help people understand how leadership can be exchanged, how leadership can be related. Leading Like a Parent is a book that is written or being written by you, and we are humbly waiting for its release. I would really wanted to know what is in it and how does it relate the similarities of leading at home and leading in a business as a CEO, as a manager, or any other person who has a business, Lubna.
So I'm actually in the process of writing a few things. This is one of them. It's more of an ebook rather than a full book. But what I wanted to tell you is that I think there are a lot of similarities between leading a home and leading a business. And I think what I advocate for is for every CEO to lead their business the same way they lead their home.
Mhm.
And I've gone on a million leadership courses in my life. And I tell you, the best leadership course I've ever had is leading my kids, because it's hard work leading a family.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you the similarities. I think when you have children and you have a business, the link between the two is you always have to have vision, and you always have to know where you're going, and have direction. And so it's the same when you lead a home. You have to have vision, you have to inspire your children, you have to inspire your workforce. So these are two similar things. You have to be a role model. You can't say something and do something else. That applies to both leading a home and leading a business. You have to also have clear rewards and consequences. Um, I think this is where businesses fail, and that's where politics starts, happening in a business, because they don't have clear consequences. So some people get a consequence and others don't, or the rewards are not very clear. And that's, you learn that at home, because it's very clear from a young age that you need to be clear with your kids that you do X, you get rewarded, and you do Y, you get a punishment.
Mhm.
And I think um, it's really important that businesses apply that and have clear boundaries and clear rewards, and focus more on positive praise and positive rewards, because that's what will make people flourish. I'd
Mhm.
say also it's so important to build trust at home and at work. Trust is the cornerstone of every team, and it's the cornerstone of every family. And that's how you raise resilient and confident kids. You have to have trust with them.
Mhm.
And it's the same in any business. If you work on trust, then you work on a thriving business. And remember the times when you've worked in a business and you feel that your manager trusted you wholeheartedly, and vice versa. That's when you actually feel like you're producing the most in life.
Mhm.
Then I'd say the last three or four, living by your values. I see a lot of businesses that have values on their walls, but they don't live by them. And
Mhm.
I think it's so important to live by your values. And the same goes at home. What shapes your life today, John, is the values that your parents brought you up with. And that's the same for any
Yeah.
CEO, the same for any house. And so I have, for example, certain values that I want to instill in my kids, and this determines everything in my kids. This determines the activities I take them on. This determines, how I shape what they do on a daily basis. Values are not hobbies; they're things that you live
Mhm.
by, and they're tested. And when they're tested, that's when you know if they're really values or not. And so, my what I encourage businesses to do, or CEOs to do, is um, to actually live by their values and not just have them on their walls.
Mhm.
And then, as a CEO, much like a home, you become really good at crisis management. You have a crisis every day, your kids test the
Mhm.
limits every day. And it's actually how you handle the crisis and how resilient you're going to be when you handle a crisis that actually sets you apart from another CEO or another leader. It's how
Mhm.
authentic you're going to be, how you apologize when you make a mistake, you rise above the crowd. That's something you learn when you lead a home and you also lead a business.
Mhm.
And the last two things, I'd say acceptance, accepting your employees for who they are. That's where
Mhm.
also a lot of businesses fail. When you are a mom or you're a dad, you have no choice but to accept your kids for who they are. They're your kids, right? And when you do that, because you accept them, you can't fire them left, right, and center.
Mhm.
Because you accept them for who they are, you end up nurturing them, and you end up uh, letting them be who they want to be. And that's the ground, that's when you lay the ground for innovation. That's when disruption happens. Because, I try to shape my kids, but then their future is their future. And so they're going to be disruptive and innovative because I've let them be who they want to be. And if you lead a business and you apply this principle, um, then you're bound to have um, a more innovative workforce, rather
Mhm.
than every year, you know, sitting in December and doing performance appraisals and saying to people, you made a mess here or you made a mess there and you need to work on their weaknesses. I mean, honestly, like, I don't believe in any of that. Rather than
Mhm.
telling people, work on your weaknesses every day, I'd rather say to people, work on your strength every day, because that's a much more impactful measure.
Mhm.
And last but not least, because I know I'm going on for some time, Last but not least, I think it's so important to invest in your employees' success. So many employers just want to use employees. Like
Mm.
they feel like employees owe them because they're paying the salary at the end of the month. I get it. We're here to produce and we're going to give you what you want. But if you really want your employees to actually produce amazing work, you want to make them feel like you care about their future and you care about their why or their purpose. And when you make employees feel like you absolutely and genuinely care about their why, and you want to invest in them, that's when they give you the best work. I mean, Simon Sinek, who I have a lot of respect for, always says that you need to know an employee's why, and you need to make sure that that why is in harmony with the team's why and with the company's why. And that's when you actually have an organization that's living in harmony and working in harmony. And that's it. I would say these are my top 10 principles for leading a business like leading a home. And I think if businesses would apply that, they'd have a very energized, engaged, and disruptive workforce.
Thank you so much, Lubna. I think no one could have said it better, and I really fit in the similarities that you give and how you try to relate both the two, leading from home and leading in a business. And I just want to take a short break, and after that, I really wanted to know about your fourth child. You said you have three kids, and there is a fourth child, and there is something that is so much important about the fourth child. So, a short break, and let's know about the fourth child.
Okay, sure.
One Talk podcast, the home of love. Listen, and learn.
So, welcome back once again. I'm with Lubna here, and we are talking about leading from home and taking the same to workplace. There is the fourth child that Lubna has that is called stories. And I just want to know something about this, Lubna, from you onwards.
Okay, John. So basically, I always say that I'm a proud mom of three kids, and the business. And I've always worked for top global brands, and I've had a fantastic journey, and I've learned a lot from all of the brands that I've worked for. But there was a burning desire in me at one point to actually try something on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to call this business something that actually touched my heart. And that's why I called it Stories. And
Mm-hmm.
as I mentioned earlier, the reason why I called it Stories is because I really believe that every person has a story to tell, every company has a story to tell, and we don't always share it in a very impactful way. And I really would love for every leader, for every business to share their story in an impactful way, because the only thing that matters is the story you leave behind. If you're an individual on your deathbed, you don't take away anything with you but that story you leave behind. And if you're a business, nobody's going to care about your product marketing. They're only going to care about your why, your purpose, what you stand for, and your real story. The businesses that have actually made an impact in life, um, take Apple as an example. Apple is a great case study of storytelling and marketing and communications, because they had a story, because they stood for something, because they marketed a lifestyle, something that they stood for. They changed the world, more or less. And so I always believe that every business should have that. And what I try to do is I work with CEOs to help them define that story, to help them, starting from their purpose to how they articulate that to their marketing and communications team, restructuring that to deliver on the right strategy and the right plan. And then I make sure that I call myself sometimes the super nanny, corporate super nanny, where I actually come in, I observe, I give tips to CEOs and teams on how to deliver on their marketing and communication strategy. And then I exit after 3 to 6 months. So that's been more or less my model since I've started. And I think, there's more to come. I'll probably, pivot that in the future. But I think the foundation will always stay the same. The foundation is my mission is to help every leader and every CEO create stories worth sharing, because it's so important to have a story worth sharing.
Wow, that's so great, Lubna. And so, a lot of people maybe who are my audience who listens to this podcast would want maybe to reach you. So, what are the possible ways these people can reach out to you, Lubna?
So I'm very active on LinkedIn. So I'd say that would be the primary place to reach me. I
Hmm.
try to, put a post once a day. And this is all new, but they can reach me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect there. Otherwise, they can reach me via my websites or social media channels on my email that's listed on my websites.
Hmm. All right. Okay, that's so good. I'll try to share the website on my podcast, Troll. And lastly, One Talk Radio podcast is never great while doing these interviews without a parting shot. So it's that moment that we are waiting for your parting shot, Lubna. And there goes it.
So you mean one last message?
Yes.
I think my last message is to live a life of purpose and a life of impact, and to make sure that you never ever let a single person dim your light. You're here. There's no mistake for why you're here. God put you on this earth for a reason, and it's
Hmm.
so important uh, to live that and to live your purpose and to find
Hmm.
your gifts and make an impact in this world. Life is not easy. It's hard, but you can overcome anything that life throws at you with faith and with the desire to want to live a life of purpose.
Thank you so very much for sparing this time, Lubna, to speak to One Talk Radio podcast and also to speak to our audience. I know you've got a busy schedule, but you spare this time to be with us. I really thank you for that and do hope that we'll host you once again to be a blessing to our audience, Lubna.
Thanks a million. Thank you so much, John.